The building was still asleep when Daniel Hale pushed his mop bucket across the marble floor, the soft squeak of rubber wheels echoing through the empty corporate lobby. Outside the glass walls, the city was just beginning to breathe, dim lights flickering off in distant apartments, the sky slowly surrendering its darkness to a pale, exhausted dawn. Daniel liked these hours. No executives rushing past without looking at him. No sharp heels clicking with impatience. No eyes sliding over him as if he were part of the furniture. At this hour, he was just a man doing his job, not the janitor, not the single dad, not the reminder of what people didn't want to see. He paused near the reception desk, adjusting the strap of his worn backpack. Inside it was his entire life neatly folded into necessity, his lunch, a small notebook filled with reminders, and a crayon drawing his 6-year-old son, Leo, had slipped in that morning before school. Stick figures. A crooked sun. 2 people holding hands. Me and you, Daddy. Daniel swallowed and went back to work. On the top floor, Evelyn Carter stood by the window of her office, staring at a city she had conquered but never truly touched. The glass reflected her image, perfectly tailored suit, immaculate hair, a face the business magazines loved to describe as ice-sharp and unstoppable. At 36, she was the youngest CEO in the company's history. And the loneliest. Her phone buzzed again. Another board message. Another reminder that profits were down, that investors were impatient, that she needed to make cuts. Evelyn closed her eyes, pressing her fingers to her temple. Weakness was a luxury she had buried years ago, along with the girl who once believed success would feel like something other than survival. By the time the building filled with people, the decision had already been made. Daniel was wiping fingerprints from the elevator doors when a voice sliced through the hum of morning activity. "You, janitor." He turned slowly. Evelyn Carter stood a few feet away, her gaze sharp, assessing, already dismissive. 2 managers hovered behind her, tense and silent. "Yes, ma'am," Daniel said, lowering his cloth. She glanced at a tablet. "Daniel Hale, you were late twice last month." "My son was sick," he said quietly. "I made up the hours." "This isn't a charity," she replied, not unkindly, but not kindly either. "We're restructuring. Your position is terminated. Effective immediately." The word hit him harder than he expected. Terminated. Daniel felt the lobby tilt, the sound stretching thin. "Please," he said before he could stop himself. I can't lose this job. I've never missed a shift. I work nights, weekends, whatever you need." Evelyn finally looked directly at him, and for a fraction of a second, something flickered in her eyes. Then it vanished. Security stepped forward. "I'm sorry," she said, already turning away. "Clear his badge." Daniel didn't argue. He simply nodded, shoulders stiff, dignity held together by sheer will. As he walked toward the exit, his reflection in the glass doors looked smaller somehow, as if the building had already erased him. Evelyn didn't watch him leave. Minutes later, everything went wrong. The pain came without warning, sharp, crushing, stealing the air from her lungs. Evelyn stumbled in the hallway outside the executive conference room, her vision blurring. She tried to steady herself against the wall, but her legs failed her. Someone screamed. The world narrowed to noise and darkness as she collapsed, her body hitting the floor hard. Daniel was still in the lobby when he heard the commotion. Instinct overrode humiliation. He ran. By the time he reached the hallway, Evelyn lay motionless, her skin unnaturally pale. People hovered, panicking, shouting for help, but no one touched her. She collapsed, someone said. "I think it's her heart." Daniel dropped to his knees beside her. He didn't see a CEO. He didn't see the woman who had fired him. He saw a human being who wasn't breathing. "I know CPR," he said, already positioning his hands. Years ago, after Leo was born premature, Daniel had taken every class the hospital offered. He pressed, counted, breathed. Nothing. Her lips were turning blue. "Come on," he whispered, voice breaking. "Please." He tilted her head, sealed his mouth over hers, and breathed life into her lungs. For a second, nothing happened. Then she gasped. Air rushed back into her chest, violent and desperate. Her body convulsed as she sucked in breath after breath, eyes fluttering open in terror and confusion. Sirens wailed in the distance. Daniel leaned back, shaking, tears streaming down his face before he realized they were there. He had saved her. Somehow. As paramedics took over, Evelyn's gaze locked onto his. Even through the haze of oxygen and shock, recognition dawned. The janitor. The man she had fired. The man whose lips had brought her back from the edge of death. At the hospital, time blurred. Tests, monitors, quiet urgency. The diagnosis came softly, a rare cardiac arrhythmia. Undetected. Deadly if untreated. The doctor spoke plainly. If no one had acted immediately, she wouldn't have made it. Evelyn lay awake long after visiting hours ended, staring at the ceiling, replaying the moment over and over. His face above hers. The warmth of breath. The unmistakable truth that she was alive because someone she had dismissed as disposable had refused to let her die. For the first time in years, shame crept into her chest. Daniel sat in the hospital cafeteria, staring at a cup of cold coffee he hadn't touched. He should have been figuring out how to tell Leo he no longer had a job. Instead, he was being thanked by strangers, patted on the shoulder, called a hero. He didn't feel like one. He felt tired, and scared, and very aware that tomorrow, reality would come crashing back. A nurse approached. "Ms. Carter asked to see you." Daniel hesitated, then nodded. Evelyn looked smaller in the hospital bed. Fragile. Human. "You saved my life," she said, her voice unsteady. "I don't even know how to thank you." "You don't have to," Daniel replied. "Anyone would have done the same." She shook her head slowly. "No, they wouldn't." Silence settled between them, heavy with everything unsaid. "I fired you," she said finally. "Yes, I was wrong." Daniel met her eyes, and for the first time, she saw the quiet strength there, the kind built from sleepless nights, sacrifices, and love that didn't make headlines. "I don't want your pity," he said gently. "I just want to take care of my son." Something inside Evelyn cracked. For the first time since becoming CEO, success felt meaningless without humanity. And for the first time in Daniel's life, hope, fragile, terrifying hope, began to stir where despair had been. Neither of them knew it yet, but the kiss that had saved her life was only the beginning. Evelyn Carter had faced hostile boardrooms, ruthless competitors, and headlines designed to tear her apart, but nothing unsettled her like the quiet after nearly dying. The hospital room hummed with machines that reminded her, relentlessly, that her heart, once something she had treated as an obstacle, had betrayed her without warning. She kept replaying the same moment. The pressure on her chest. The darkness closing in. Then warmth. Breath. Life forced back into her body by a man she had dismissed without a second thought. Daniel Hale. The name lingered in her mind like a bruise. When she was discharged 3 days later, she didn't go home. Home felt hollow. Instead, she returned to the office building, the same one where she had collapsed, walking its halls slowly, seeing everything differently. The marble floors Daniel had polished gleamed beneath her feet. The air smelled faintly of disinfectant and coffee. Life continued here, indifferent to how close she had come to losing hers. Her assistant hovered nervously. "Ms. Carter, the board wants a meeting this afternoon." "They're concerned." "I'm sure they are," Evelyn replied, her voice calm but distant. "Cancel it." The assistant blinked. "Cancel the board." "Yes." For the first time in years, Evelyn Carter chose herself over power. Meanwhile, Daniel sat at the small kitchen table of his apartment, staring at a pile of unopened bills. The space was modest, 2 rooms, chipped paint, furniture collected over years of making do, but it was home. Leo sat across from him, legs swinging, coloring quietly. "Daddy," Leo said without looking up, "are you sad?" Daniel forced a smile. "Why would you think that, buddy?" "You do that face," Leo said, tapping his own forehead. "The thinking too hard face." Daniel laughed softly, then sighed. "Daddy lost his job." Leo paused, crayon hovering. "Did you do something bad?" "No," Daniel said immediately, heart tightening. "Never think that. Sometimes grown-ups make choices that hurt other people without meaning to." Leo considered this with the seriousness only children possessed. "Will we still have pancakes?" The question nearly broke him. "Yes," Daniel said, voice thick. "We'll always have pancakes." Later that afternoon, his phone rang. An unfamiliar number. "Mr. Hale?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes. This is Evelyn Carter." Silence stretched. She stopped, then tried again. "I know this is unexpected. I was hoping we could talk. In person." Daniel closed his eyes. "Of course." The world never stopped reminding him who held the power. I don't think that's a good idea, he said carefully. I owe you more than a thank you, Evelyn replied. Please. Against his better judgment, he agreed. They met in a quiet cafe near the hospital. Evelyn arrived without her usual armor, no entourage, no sharp suit. She looked tired. Human. I've reinstated your job, she said immediately. Daniel's jaw tightened. I didn't save you to get my job back. I know, she said softly. That's why I want you to have it. He shook his head. I don't want to be someone's guilt. Evelyn absorbed that, pain flickering across her face. Then let me be honest. When I thought I was dying, the only thing I felt was regret. Not about deals. Not about money. About how many people I'd treated like they didn't matter. She met his eyes. You matter. Daniel looked away. Words are easy. Then let me prove it. Days turned into weeks. Daniel returned to work, not as a janitor, but as facilities supervisor, a role Evelyn had created specifically for him. It paid more, came with stable hours, and allowed him to pick Leo up from school every day. Daniel accepted reluctantly, still unsure whether this was kindness or conscience. Evelyn watched him from a distance at first. The way he spoke to people, the way employees responded to him, with warmth, respect, trust. Things she had never inspired. One evening, she found him in the maintenance office, fixing a broken chair. You don't have to do that yourself, she said. I like fixing things, Daniel replied. Feels honest. The words landed deeper than he knew. As her treatment continued, Evelyn learned to slow down. She listened, to doctors, to her body, to the silence she had spent years outrunning. And, slowly, to Daniel. She learned about Leo. About Daniel's wife, Maria, who had died 6 years earlier from an aggressive illness. About hospital nights and empty mornings and learning how to braid hair from YouTube videos. You didn't remarry, Evelyn said once. Daniel shook his head. Love doesn't disappear. It just changes shape. Evelyn felt something twist inside her chest. One night, after a late meeting, she collapsed again, not physically this time, but emotionally. Panic seized her, sharp and suffocating. Daniel found her sitting alone in the executive lounge, shaking. I can't breathe, she whispered. He knelt in front of her, grounding her with calm, steady presence. Look at me. Breathe with me. She did. In that moment, power meant nothing. Titles meant nothing. All that mattered was connection. Their relationship changed after that. Not suddenly. Not dramatically. Just quietly, irrevocably. Until the board found out. You're compromising the company, one of them snapped. This man is an employee. He's a person, Evelyn replied. Choose, they said, him or the company. That night, Evelyn stood alone in her office, city lights blurring through tears she had sworn she would never shed again. For the first time, the choice was clear. And terrifying. Daniel didn't know any of this when Evelyn showed up at his apartment, rain-soaked and shaking. I might lose everything, she said. He opened the door wider. Then come in. As she sat at his table, surrounded by crayons and half-finished homework, Evelyn Carter realized something she had never learned in all her years of ambition. Love was not a weakness. It was the bravest thing she had ever faced. And the man who had once saved her life with a kiss was about to teach her how to truly live.